Welcome to On the Spot, Portland Community College's brand new podcast, brought to you by Internal Communications. This is where you get straight answers to the questions PCC employees most want to know. Every episode, we dive into topics submitted by PCC employees, whether it's about college operations, our community, or amazing people behind the scenes. We're on the spot for you. And the best part, each episode is short and to the point. On the Spot is perfect for a quick listen during your busy day. New episodes will be released every 2 weeks, so please make sure to subscribe. I'm Misty Bowes, PCC Public Relations Specialist and your host. Today, our guest is Ryan Clark, Associate Vice President of Enrollment Management and Strategy. Ryan, you're here to talk about fall enrollment trends and factors impacting enrollment this year. You ready for this?
Absolutely. Misty, it is so good to see you. And thank you for giving me an opportunity just to, talk about enrollment. We're in a great spot. We have really good news to share, which is always way more fun.
Yeah, bring that. We need more.
I feel like there's a lot of question, a lot of mystery around enrollment. I think folks at a high level understand, maybe the steps involved in enrolling, maybe that, we pay attention to these things. But I think there's a lot of unknowns for folks across the college about the work in my division, the work that goes on at a more strategic level, planning wise. And we've been doing a ton behind the scenes over the past couple years to really shift our approach to enrollment. And we're finally at the spot where some of the things that have been planning for a number of years are moving into implementation, and they're going to be a little more visible. So,
Ryan, that is really good news for the college. And I know that when we talk to our peers at the other Oregon Community College Association, 16 members, we heard some very good news at symposiums this fall that they also are seeing different levels, but generally, all but one had upticks. And I know the third week of the term, that email, I try to look at the data, and I hope you'll help us digest that a little bit. But is there a trend that you're seeing for PCC?
Yeah, I think some of what we're seeing absolutely aligns with what our other community college counterparts are seeing. I think, the growth in the career and technical programs, if you zoom out a little bit and think about the national conversation going on around high student debt and really making sure that folks are getting those, jobs that are helping their socioeconomic mobility, with transfer programs, that is one area where I think there is a little more scrutiny and maybe more questioning going on. And so we, like other schools, have seen growth on the other side in career and technical education. And as we look at enrollment trends overall, we anticipate that to continue. Enrollment growth for PCC and any other college really looks at our market in a little more nuanced way than I think we have in the past. Of course, we get students straight from high school, but, the adult returning student market is really largely untapped. And one of the things that we know about that market is they're very career and outcome focused. And so as we look at kind of building out our approach to serving that adult market in more intentional ways, building upon the successes with career and technical education and those, career-connected learning outcomes is going to be critical.
Okay, to ask you a little more about that target market of returning adults who are coming back to college.
Yeah.
So besides their specific areas of like career earnings, et cetera, how big of a market do you see that for us? Could that really move the needle?
I think so. One of the things, in thinking about the different populations that we serve, some folks may have heard about the birth dearth when you're thinking about the straight from high school population. Declining birth rates are starting to impact the number of high school graduates. Now, in some areas of the country, like the East Coast, that impact is pretty dramatic and impacting enrollment for colleges in those regions in really serious ways, meaning they're having to look at other markets like returning adults to balance that out. The good news for the Portland area is while we are going to see a dip in the number of high school graduates in our service district, that decrease is not nearly as significant as we're seeing in other areas. So we have a decrease that we need to plan for in that straight from high school market, which leads us to, I think that adult market space. And for us, where we, see some growth is in that. And across our service district, that is really where it looks like the enrollment opportunities live.
Birth to Earth, that's interesting. So what are the key metrics your team is using to monitor the enrollment this term?
I think, first and foremost, headcount, the number of students that we have really is one of those first key performance indicators that I think we all can understand. We serve students, and how many of those students we have is, that first indicator of how well we're doing. And, our head count, that's that measure, we're up 103.8% as of the first week of the term with 28,246 students. That number will fluctuate. We've got to get through our add drop period, which happens in week 2 of the term. And then there's all sorts of little registration activity throughout the term. But headcount is really what starts it. Full-time equivalency tells us a little bit, though, about what our students are doing, how many credits they're taking, because the majority of community college students are part-time. So that's why you see, even though we have 28,246 students, our full-time equivalency number is only 6,322. So what that tells us is when you take all of the registration activity that our students are doing and you try to approximate that into a full-time student, that's how we get that full-time equivalency number. So that's another key performance indicator on the enrollment side. We also have indicators in different kind of steps of the enrollment process. So, of course, it starts when students are thinking about PCC in the admissions process. So looking at marketing metrics, we're looking at, the number of students that fill out requests for information form, how that flows into the number of students filling out an admissions application, the number of students completing an admissions application, the number of students that end up getting admitted. And, playing that out into getting oriented to the college, registering for classes for the first time, we really monitor at a very granular level every single step of that enrollment journey. And then that flows into retention metrics. Once students are here, that's one step of the process. Keeping students here and making sure they actually achieve their academic and career goals is really just as important as those admissions metrics. So looking at who comes back, who registers again, also who's graduating. Ultimately, that graduation number is a great sign of, are we doing what we set out to do, which is getting students those credentials that they need to, get the outcomes that they want, get that great job, improve their socioeconomic mobility.
What are your team's goals for enrollment this year, the team goal?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's continuing the positive trajectory that we're on enrollment-wise. We want to, maintain this momentum where we are seeing growth term after term. One of the, important things that we are doing to make sure that's happening is, for the first time, we actually have a college-wide strategic enrollment management plan. We have been working for actually a number of years to develop that strategic enrollment management plan, and we are at the point where ideas, initiatives, improvements to the student experience are starting to be implemented and projects are coming to life. And so, we have, I think, some really exciting projects on the horizon that will really start to shift the enrollment landscape and our approach to enrollment. Some of those things are, changes or maybe a little more focused approaches to how we market and recruit different student populations. Like we talked about earlier, the adult student population. So I know folks in marketing and communication, our opportunity centers, admissions and recruitment, academic affairs, have really been working together to think about, what do, marketing and recruitment strategies look like for that adult market? And how do we build out those plans so that we can make sure that we're growing, our market share and taking advantage of those opportunities? Other examples of strategic enrollment initiatives that are in that plan look at improving other aspects of the student experience. We know that academic advising is super critical. We know that our advisors have very high caseloads and are serving a large number of students. So there's been, investments in advising staff. We added 3 new advising positions as part of our enrollment planning process. to help bolster student support. So those are just a couple examples of, strategic investments and initiatives that we have in our enrollment plan to make sure that we stay on this positive growth trajectory.
That sounds very positive, that there are new advisors that help move students through the whole pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
There have been some holdups in different areas for different reasons.
Exactly. And every college is, I think, always looking to improve the overall student experience. We have some unique challenges because of our size. We are trying to serve a large volume of people, which means that providing the level of maybe hands-on support that we ultimately want for our students isn't feasible. We just simply don't have maybe enough humans to go around. So in addition to, investments in hiring, we also have to look at how we're using technology, how we're looking at business processes, and really taking a step back and I think challenging ourselves. Why do we have certain policies and procedures in place? Are they really serving our students? Are they actually barriers to students enrolling? So there's a lot of, maybe invisible work that needs to be done too, related to our enrollment efforts, just to make sure that we're really thinking holistically about the student experience, meeting the consumer expectations of the modern student. I think one of the things that, maybe folks are aware of is that we live in a world where folks are used to Amazon, Netflix experiences. You can do almost everything from your smartphone. Choice architecture is really different than it was even 5 or 10 years ago. We're used to things being filtered out a little bit for us, things served up to us. I think take, for example, how we, consume media. We don't flip through channels, on a TV set in the same way looking for something to watch. A service like Netflix maybe serves up a couple of options based on our interests and viewing patterns that might be of interest. That's really the spirit in guided pathways. How do we take this choice architecture, the old school days of pouring through that printed course catalog, looking at all of your options to complete, say, your general education requirements? The modern student, that's overwhelming. That's a lot of information to digest. And so our work in implementing guided pathways to, I think really try to introduce some of this, big data. How do we help our students, whittle down those choices, but use technology in smart ways is absolutely something that's kind of just constantly in conversation and planning. We need to modernize.
Now, Ryan, that sounds like meeting students where they are really,
Yes.
Which is big tech. We got to really get in and know the apps they use and the impatience with time to figure things out and how to get enrolled and what's smooth and easy. And I'm so glad to hear that that's all being thought about. Do you use focus groups of students, I wonder?
We do. And, I think, I have to give a shout out to folks like our web team and, folks in admissions and recruitment and folks across the college who really do lean on our students to give us that feedback. Also, I know this might sound kind of funny, but we pay close attention to the feedback and even complaints that we get from our students. That feedback, even if it's hard to hear sometimes, helps us understand where we're missing the mark. We may not be able to, maybe make a change or fix something immediately, but I think it's really important for our whole community to know that we take that feedback really seriously and do use that to inform how we improve in the future. And so that's another way that we, make sure that we're lifting up the voices of our students and really understand what their experience is like at the college.
Well, thank you for doing this work and finding the barriers that keep the underserved from being served by our institution and really switching it up and empowering us. And we all are here because of the enrollment everyone is working so hard on. So, Ryan, I want to say thank you on behalf of our podcast that's brand new to the college to being one of our earliest guests. We're so grateful to have you here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. For those of you listening, thanks for tuning in to our first season of On the Spot at PCC. Future biweekly episodes bring guests from across the college to talk about the work they're supporting and to answer your questions. I'm Misty Baus, and it's been a pleasure. We'll talk again next time.